Hey, welcome. Tonight, we travel to a world of togas, triumphs, and tetanus. Ancient Rome, where empires rose, sandals chafed, and most people's job descriptions could double as a death sentence. Before we get started, go ahead and like this video, subscribe, but only if you enjoy falling asleep to tragic work-related injuries, and tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from and what century you're currently stuck in. Always good to know who's drifting off across time and space. Now, dim the lights. Maybe light a candle, preferably not near anything flammable. Settle in. Let's take a long, slow walk through the alleyways of history. And maybe, try not to inhale too deeply. The cloaca fumes are no joke. You wake up before dawn. Because that's when people like you wake up. The marble villas are still sleeping, their courtyards quiet, their fountains whispering in Latin. But you're already on your feet, half-dressed, feet raw from yesterday's blisters, today's expectations, and tomorrow's absence of medical insurance. Your nose stings from the smell of smoke, damp stone, and the morning piss that runs through the streets like a lazy tributary. The baker's kiln has already coughed out its first breath of heat. Somewhere nearby, a hammer hits bronze, sharp and rhythmic, like a heartbeat under pressure. Your breakfast is what's left of a barley cake. It tastes like the concept of food, chewed on by time and forgotten by joy. You wash it down with sour wine that used to be water, or maybe water that used to be wine. It's hard to tell in this light. Either way, your stomach groans but signs the contract. Again. You tighten the rope around your waist. Not for fashion, there is none. Just to keep your tunic from tripping you. You learned that lesson last week. Your hip still remembers. Your hands are already cracked. Your nails blackened. Dirt has a way of making itself at home in your skin here. You stopped trying to scrub it out after the third infection. And the air? The air doesn't move much in your part of the city. It's thick. Not with mystery, just with flies. Flies and dust, and the smell of ambition cooking in its own sweat. You glance toward the forum. The statues are gleaming again. Someone polished them overnight. Not you. You don't polish marble. You carry it. You break it. You break yourself carrying it. But that's later. For now, your job is waiting. And your job, like most jobs in Rome, doesn't care if you slept, ate, or wept in your sleep. It only cares that you're upright and breathing. For now. In the next hour, you'll cross paths with dozens like you. Men with twisted backs and thousand-yard stares. Boys pretending to be men just to earn their first scar. Women in the shadows, sweeping, hauling, stitching, always disappearing before the census comes. You pass the brick ovens. They're already hot. Hotter than the sun that hasn't risen yet. Someone screams inside. It's not a dramatic scream, just a daily one. The kind that says, "My sleeve caught fire again, but the quota isn't met." You nod. Rome burns, in small pieces every day. By midday, your hands will be raw. By nightfall, someone you know will be missing a finger, or a limb, or a job. Maybe even all three. Maybe it'll be you. But for now, there's work. Always work. Always the sound of shovels, hooves, orders barked in Latin, and dreams dying in silence. This is not the Rome of legends. This isn't the Rome of marble busts and golden laurel wreaths. This is the Rome of blood, bone, brick, and burden. The one they built with human labor and human loss. Tonight, we walk through it, slowly, carefully, peeking into the lives of those who didn't have statues made for them. Who didn't lead legions or quote Cicero. These are the lives of the expendables. The men and women whose job descriptions included words like risk, pain, and fatal. Miners who suffocated underground. Brickmakers who melted beside their own kills. cloaca cleaners who were swallowed whole by the city's own waste, gladiator slaves who patched up wounds just to be thrown back into training before the bleeding stopped. 16 jobs. 16 ways to die quietly in the name of empire. And maybe, just maybe, a moment of glory so small it wouldn't fit on a coin. But you took the job anyway. Because in Rome, saying no wasn't an option. And saying yes, well, that was just the beginning of the end. Ready? Then let's begin our descent. Welcome to the deadliest jobs in ancient Rome. And try not to get too attached. Most of the people in these stories don't make it to the end. So, let's say you were born unlucky. Not unlucky enough to be fed to lions, or drafted into some doomed campaign in Gaul, but just unlucky enough to be born here, beneath the shadow of Mount Esmeralda, Rome's forgotten tooth. It's not glorious. It's not scenic. It's just tall, jagged, and full of things the empire desperately wants but doesn't want to dig for itself. That's your job. You are a miner, a human pickaxe, a cough wrapped in skin. And every day, you descend into the dark belly of the earth to carve out the bones of Rome's ambition. It begins before dawn. Always. The sun hasn't risen, but you're already awake, because the overseer is yelling. You can't see him, but you can hear him. His voice cuts through sleep like a chisel. You grab your tools, a dull pick, a cracked oil lamp, and a satchel of prayers. You won't use any of them properly. The air outside is cold, but brief. You descend into the mine, and the world changes. The light fades. The ground grows damp. The walls begin to breathe. And suddenly, there is no Rome. No empire. Just rock. Endless rock. Sometimes iron. Sometimes pumice. Sometimes something sharper, hungrier, like the black dust that floats through the tunnels and coats your lungs like a second skin. They call it esmeralda. A volcanic stone used to polish marble, sharpen weapons, grind glass. It's valuable. Which is to say, you're not. You're not here because you chose this. You're here because someone needed bodies. Maybe your debt landed you here. Maybe your father's. Maybe your village pissed off the wrong magistrate. It doesn't matter now. You're here. And so is the dust. You strike. Over and over. The rhythm of your life is a hammer and an echo. You don't speak down here. Not because it's forbidden. Because it's pointless. Words disappear. Swallowed by stone. And then, one day so does someone else. Cave-ins are common. The supports are makeshift. Timber beams sag like tired shoulders. Sometimes the walls sweat. Other times, they scream. A rumble here, a crack there, and suddenly, 5 men are gone. Buried beneath the very thing they were digging for. You hear stories of survivors. One man lasted 2 days beneath the rubble, surviving off sweat and spiders. He came out blind. Not from injury, from darkness. That's what the mines do. They steal your eyes, your breath, your time. Let's talk about the lungs. You cough. Every day. At first, it was dry. Then it turned red. Then it stopped mattering. Some say it's the pumice dust. Others blame the sulfur, the mold, the bats. Doesn't matter. Your breath rattles like dice. Sometimes you spit into your hand and pretend it's just dirt. It isn't. The Romans, in their wisdom, don't give you a mask. They give you a quota. Dig this much. Fill that cart. Don't die. Or if you do it quietly. And gods forbid you stop to drink. Water is sacred. Not in a religious sense, in a logistical one. They give you half a skin per shift. It's warm. Metallic. You drink it anyway. Sometimes it burns. That means it's clean, supposedly. Food. A crust of bread. A slice of onion. Once, on Saturnalia, someone got a figure. He was found later, smiling in his sleep. Breaks. Don't be cute. You're allowed to piss in a side tunnel. That's about it. Sometimes the overseer lets you out early. Not out of kindness. Just math. Dead men can't carry stone, but exhausted ones work slower. So you're marched back to the surface, blinking like a mole, hands trembling, coughing like a condemned trumpet. At night, your dreams smell like sulfur. And your hands. They don't feel anymore. The calluses have turned into armor. You could hold a torch by the flame and barely flinch. Sometimes you look at the mountain and wonder if it's hollow. If one day it'll collapse entirely. If the empire will care. It won't. Because above ground, Rome is shining. Marble facades. Polished columns. Blades that gleam like sunlight. But none of them shimmer without you. Without Esmeralda. That statue of Jupiter? Smoothed with your dust. That soldier's sword? Sharpened on your lungs. And so you work. Not for glory. Not for pay. Not even for hope. You work because Rome asked for stone, and your life was the price. And deep beneath the earth, where even light refuses to linger, you pay it. One swing at a time. You wake up not to the soft glow of dawn, but to the sharp bark of a Roman overseer kicking your side. You are not a soldier. You are not a sailor. You are property. A rower on a Roman galley, chained, blistered, and already exhausted before the day begins. You are in Ostia, Rome's bustling port city, a place where ships float atop the Tiber like fallen teeth from Neptune's jaw. It's the year 112 AD. Trajan rules the empire, but you wouldn't know it. Your world is the length of a wooden bench and the reach of your oar. Your wrists ache before you even grip the handle. The shackles have worn your skin raw, and the salt air doesn't heal, it bites. You're fed enough to survive, but not to thrive. Bread. A handful of olives. Water that tastes like old copper. Enough to keep your heart beating while you power Rome's maritime ambitions. Your galley is a trireme, sleek and deadly, its prow carved with a sneering face of Neptune. It smells of mold, sweat, urine, and wet rope. The wooden interior creaks with every movement, like it's wailing beneath the weight of human suffering. You row in rhythm with a drum that never falters and never forgives. Boom, boom, boom. You've learned to hate that sound. It's not just tempo, it's tyranny. Above deck, the officers bark orders and strike with rods. Below, there's only breath and blood and muscle. You row not because you choose to, but because the pain of not rowing is worse. Miss a beat, and the overseer's lash will correct you. Repeated offenses? You'll be made an example. And examples bleed. Sometimes, one of you dies mid-row. He slumps forward, his hands still clutching the oar. No ceremony. No stop in the rhythm. The body is unshackled and thrown overboard like ballast. You row around the space until a replacement arrives. There is always a replacement. Your back is a map of welts. Your shoulders scream each night, and your fingers are too stiff to form fists. The man beside you is named Marius. Or maybe that was the one before. You don't talk. Talking wastes breath. And you need every gasp you can steal. Storms are the worst. The sea becomes a beast, and your galley its plaything. Waves crash over the sides. Rain lashes your face. The officer above doesn't care. You row. You always row. The alternative is drowning with your arms still chained to the boat. When there is battle, things grow worse. You hear it before you see it, the cries of enemy ships, the twang of bows, the crash of hull against hull. You are below deck, blind to the chaos, but you feel it in every bone. The ship shudders, the rhythm is lost, and screams become the new percussion. After the fight, if your galley wins, you may get more bread. If it loses, you may not eat for days. Or at all. You row on, each day bleeding into the next. There are no seasons here, only soreness and salt. You remember once, years ago, standing on dry land. You were a farmer then. Or maybe a thief. Maybe you were both. The Romans took you in a raid, branded your arm, and sold you like cattle. Now your body belongs to the sea, and your soul is not even yours to mourn. You do not know how long this will last. Some rowers survive years, others weeks. Infection is common. Your gums bleed. Your legs swell. The ship's doctor, if you can call him that, offers wine and a dull knife. Pray your fever breaks on its own. Sometimes, you dream of fire. Not of freedom, but of the galley burning, your chains melted, the sea swallowing everything. You wake disappointed. Occasionally, Roman citizens walk past the docks and glance inside. They wince, but they do not stop. You are not men to them. You are noise, machinery, a smell. You power their empire and are forgotten by it. They say the gods see all, but you have not seen a god in years. Your hands blister anew today. The drum beats, the lash waits, and the horizon, always just out of reach, mocks you with the promise of a land you'll never walk again. Row, boom, row. The Roman executioner. They don't teach you how to sleep with ghosts. They don't tell you that the silence between executions is louder than the screams during them. And they never say what it does to a man's eyes, when those eyes are the last thing hundreds of others ever see. Your name isn't remembered. You were never meant to be remembered. You're the Carnifex, the official executioner of the Roman state, feared by the guilty, loathed by the innocent, and avoided by everyone else. No prayers are said for your soul. No hands touch your cloak in the street. If you died tomorrow, the baker wouldn't miss your coin, and the priest wouldn't bury you in consecrated ground. But Rome needs you. Every day you wake before the sun and wash your hands even though the blood isn't there yet. Just the memory of it. The ghost of iron and copper lingering under your nails. Your tools are lined in order, not polished, never clean, only ready. The heavy blade of the securus, its edge never sharp enough. The leather lash. The hammer and the long bronze nails. The torch. And finally, the hooks. Your first job was at 17. A thief from the Subura. Hands tied behind his back. A sentence passed without ceremony. Crucifixion. You missed the first nail strike. Your hands trembled. The second hit the bone. He screamed your name. You never told him your name. They say crucifixion is a slow death, but no one tells you it's also a loud one. They groan. They sob. They beg. They pray to gods who stopped listening when Saturn fell. You used to count the hours. Now you count the flies. By 20, you stopped shaking. By 25, you stopped looking them in the eyes. Now you're 34 and your neighbors move away when they find out who you are. Your last lover didn't even wait for the sun to rise. Just left a note. I dream of nails. They say Rome is civilization. But civilization still needs killing done by hand. Some days it's quick. A clean beheading in the forum, well-fed citizens gathering as if for a play. They bring figs. They bring wine. They bring their children. You step forward in your black tunic, face hidden by the cuculus, that awful executioner's hood that smells like mold and death. The condemned stares at you, hoping for mercy. You give none. Mercy is above your station. You lift the blade. You hesitate, not out of compassion but calculation. The crowd likes a single, perfect stroke. A second blow invites laughter, or worse, boredom. The blade falls. The head rolls. Someone claps. They never clap for you. You go home. You wash. The water turns red. You still hear it, the wet sound the neck makes. Other days, it's worse. Some crimes require spectacle, treason, sorcery, incest, and then, the bodies are not just killed. They are displayed, burned, broken. You recall the senator's daughter, 15, accused of poisoning her betrothed. She died screaming that she was innocent, and the crowd jeered like she was an actor botching her lines. You think of her often. And then there are the nights. The executions that aren't public. The ones ordered in whispers. You enter a cell. There's a man tied to a post. He's already crying. He's already begging. You light the torch. You don't ask what he did. You don't want to know. Sometimes, it's not even criminals. Sometimes, it's slaves. Sometimes, it's gladiators. Sometimes, it's soldiers who looked the wrong way at the wrong person. And then, there are the children. You don't talk about those. You've started drinking. Not the casual wine of a Roman evening. No. The hard stuff. The kind that numbs your hands, so they stop shaking after you take off the hood. You used to write poetry. Now your hands are too stained to hold the parchment for long. You tried to write once, after a mass execution at the arena. 20 prisoners, rebels, they said. One of them was laughing until the blade came down. You wrote one line. I have become the shadow of Rome's glory. Then you burned the page. You live alone. You used to dream of children. A wife. Now the only visitors you get are memories, and the gods you stopped believing in. There is a rumor going around, that a new emperor is cleaning house. No trials. Just silence. Men disappear. Their families never hear a word. You wonder when your name will come up. When they'll knock on your door and ask you to kneel. You're not afraid. You've seen death. You've handed it out. You just hope the man who comes for you is quick. And then, one night, the knock comes. Not official. Not ceremonial. Just 3 short raps. You open the door. It's a boy. 15. Cloak too large for him. Eyes too wide. He holds out a letter. It's sealed with wax. Inside. Your service is no longer required. The state thanks you. Please vacate your quarters within 3 days. No name. No signature. You sit. You drink. You wait. No one comes. 3 days pass. 4. You wander to the forum. No one speaks to you. The man with the fig stall pretends not to see you. The priest at the temple avoids your eyes. You are a ghost. And Rome does not mourn its ghosts. You go home. You light a fire. You take out the hood, black, stiff, reeking. You place it in the flame. It doesn't scream. You pour another drink. You watch the hood burn. And you wonder, was this mercy? Or did they simply forget you? Either way, you finally sleep. And this time, the ghosts are quiet. You want to know what it means to live a hard life in ancient Rome? Then let me take you away from the lofty marble halls, the grand speeches of senators, the perfume-soaked noblewomen, and drop you into a room where the steam never clears, where sweat replaces water, and where the scent of sulfur sticks to your skin like a curse. Welcome to the underbelly of Roman luxury, the public baths. And not as a guest. No, tonight, You're not lounging on a heated slab while a slave oils your back. You're the one scrubbing, shoveling, and silently screaming into the clouds of vapor rising from the hypocaust. You're not a citizen. You're barely a man anymore. You're a worker of the balnei, and today your shift began before the sun even bothered to rise. The caldarium doesn't heat itself. The hot room, always sweltering, must reach temperatures of up to 50 degrees Celsius before the wealthy elite step in, and that means you shovel firewood until your fingers blister and your clothes stick to your body like wet parchment. The hypocaust system, clever Roman engineering that uses raised floors and empty spaces to heat rooms from below, becomes your personal hell. You crawl beneath the bathhouse, surrounded by smoke, ash, and rats that are fatter than most citizens. You feed the fire, and it feeds on you in return. Sometimes the ash is so thick in your throat, your voice comes out like sand scraping over gravel. You drink water from a skin that tastes of mildew and stale wine. And that's a luxury. Some days, you just scoop rainwater from a corner barrel and hope it hasn't gone green. They call you a fornicator, furnace keeper. A word that sounds like strength. But there's nothing strong about the way your lungs rattle at night, or the boils that form on your back after a week of crawling through furnace ash. Your companion, Lucius, used to boast that his job kept him warm through winter. That was before the fever took him. He coughed blood for a week before collapsing in the tepidarium, face first into a half-scrubbed mosaic. The guests complained more about the delay than his death. And then there are the scrapers. You might graduate to that if your back holds out. Once the guests are done coating themselves in scented oil, someone has to scrape it off their skin with a strigil. Oil, sweat, dead skin, and whatever else the bathhouse gods decide to gift you that day. You collect it in a bowl. It's used to make soap. Sometimes, it's sold to people who think it has healing properties. You wonder if they know where it really came from. You have no gloves, no mask, just bare hands and the will to make it to evening. The walls of the bathhouse are slick with condensation. Mold grows in the corners. The mosaic floors are beautiful from afar but treacherous when wet. One slip and your head cracks open like an amphora. The guests, they don't see you. Not really. You're just part of the background, like the steam or the occasional slave boy running with towels. But they notice if the heat dips for even a moment. They notice if a marble bench isn't polished. They notice if the air smells more of humanity than of lavender. The irony is cruel. Rome prides itself on cleanliness, yet you, the one who makes it possible, are filth incarnate in their eyes. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you get to clean the laconicum, the dry sweating room. It's slightly easier on the lungs. You can almost think in there. That's where you met Titus, an old veteran with scars down one arm and burns up the other. Said he took a gladius to the stomach in Gaul, survived, and now sweeps up loose hairs in the frigidarium. Better than starving, he told you once, as he pushed a pile of used sandals into a corner with his foot. Worse than dying in battle. There's also the ever-looming risk of disease. Water pools in every crack. Fungus thrives in the warm damp. Your feet, constantly wet, begin to blister and rot. Some days, you think your toes are fusing together. And then there are the boils, pus-filled, angry, unforgiving. If they burst, you tie them off with linen and hope they don't poison your blood. The management. The bathhouse is run by a lanista who treats the workers the way he used to treat gladiators, with threats, mockery, and the occasional kick. The heat should never drop, he says, tapping a stylus against a wax tablet. Or I drop you into the hypocaust myself. You believe him. Lunch is a fig and half a loaf of barley bread. You sit behind the boiler, shielding yourself from both the flames and the gaze of the guests. You chew slowly, knowing it has to last. The figs are stolen. The bread. From a vendor who looks the other way because your brother saved his son from drowning 2 summers ago. By the end of your shift, your eyes burn, your limbs tremble, and your breath smells like charcoal and hopelessness. But you keep going. Because tomorrow, the baths will open again. The wealthy will undress, oil their skin, and pretend they are gods among men. And you will light the fires beneath their feet. You will scrape their filth. You will bleed for their comfort. And if you're lucky, truly lucky, you might die before you grow too weak to work. Because in Rome, even death is a privilege for the poor. So breathe deep. The scent of sulfur, sweat, and servitude is the perfume of survival. Welcome to the baths. The brick kiln worker. So, tonight, you are not a gladiator. You are not a soldier. You're not even a sewer diver. You are something more foundational. You are the reason walls stand, temples rise, and aqueducts hold. You are a brick kiln worker in the outskirts of ancient Rome. And your day begins with heat. Not the gentle warmth of a spring sun kissing your forehead. No, this is a brute heat. A thick, throat-clogging, soul-drying heat that seeps through your tunic before you've even buttoned it. You wake not to birdsong, but to the sound of wood being split and flames licking the belly of the kiln. And before your feet hit the dirt, you already smell like you've lost a fight with a smoked boar. Your job? To make bricks. Thousands of them. Every week. No breaks for festivals, omens, or lunar eclipses. Rome expands, and you are the muscle behind its bones. You step outside your hut, if you can call 4 walls of damp clay and a thatched roof a hut, and the ash greets you like an old, clingy friend. It's in your eyebrows, your nostrils, your teeth, your dreams. The kiln towers ahead, belching smoke like a dragon with indigestion. Built into a shallow hill, the brick oven stretches long and wide, with chambers carved like ribs and a roaring core that's been burning since your father's father stoked it. Your first task is to turn the bricks inside. Which sounds simple. Until you're inside the kiln. That's right, inside. It's like crawling into the mouth of a volcano, but less poetic. The walls radiate heat. The floor sizzles through your sandals. The air feels thick enough to drink, except it tastes like charcoal and regret. You shuffle in, a wooden paddle in hand, and begin to flip the half-baked bricks one by one. Your tunic clings to you. Your fingers blister. Your mind floats somewhere between delirium and prayer. And if you're lucky, today the fire doesn't leap. Sometimes it does. Flames that dance unexpectedly from cracks, biting at your calves or licking your face. There are no fireproof gloves. No goggles. Only soot, sweat, and scars. Then there's the shaping. Once the wet clay is mixed, barefoot, in a pit, with a shovel or just your toes, you pour it into molds. Carefully. The wrong amount of water and the bricks will crack. Too dry, and they'll crumble. Too wet, and they'll never bake properly. The overseer doesn't care. He wants numbers, not excuses. He carries a whip, not a clipboard. And if your pile is smaller than yesterday's, you'll learn how leather tastes against your back. Sometimes, in the middle of the day, you pause to eat bread. If you're lucky. Sometimes a figure. Often, it's just your own spit, swallowed quietly to silence your stomach. Water is rationed. Not because it's scarce, but because thirst keeps you obedient. Hydration is for nobles, not kiln workers. And when night comes, if it comes, you're not done. The kiln doesn't sleep. Someone must keep the fires alive. That someone is often you. You take turns with the others, feeding the belly with bundles of timber hauled from nearby groves. One wrong placement and the fire chokes. Or worse, overheats. A full batch of bricks, shattered by impatience. The penalty. Redoing the whole batch. in silence, while your fingers bleed and your eyes weep ash. Now, let's talk risks. Burns. Constant. The kind that leave patterns. Swirls. Scars that look like maps of forgotten provinces. Collapses. Oh yes. The walls of the kiln expand with heat and contract with cold. A crack here, a crumble there, and the roof might drop like a lazy god swatting flies. And then there's the dust. Fine, invisible, creeping dust. You don't see it, but it sees you. You breathe it, hour after hour, day after day. Your chest grows heavy. Your cough turns wet. Some days you cough up something red. You laugh, say it's wine, and go back to flipping bricks. What else can you do? No one retires from the brick kiln. They just stop showing up. Sometimes it's the heat. Sometimes it's the lungs. Sometimes it's the overseer's whip. But most often, it's just the body saying no more. Yet somehow, you endure. Because there's pride here. Twisted, scorched, sun-drenched pride. You walk through the city and see a wall, and you know, it was yours. That archway? Yours. That bathhouse dome? Yours too. They won't remember your name. But your bricks will outlive emperors. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. They don't tell you the smell is the first thing that changes you. Not the plague itself, not the rot, not even the fear. The smell. It clings to everything. Hair, nails, clothes, and the creases of your own skin. A sour, meaty stench, thick with decay and silence. The silence of people who don't moan anymore, who don't cry out, who simply lie there, unmoving. You're a body collector. Not by training, not by trade. Just by necessity. In the summer of 165 AD, the Antonine Plague swept through Rome, and when men fled and priests died, someone had to clean the streets. So here you are. Each morning starts the same. The bell rings through the forum, not for prayer or politics, but for pickup. Wooden carts are rolled out, splintered and heavy, pulled by whatever animal hasn't died yet. You walk with a rag over your face, though it does little. The smell gets in. Through the cloth, through the pores. It finds you. The streets are empty but not quiet. There are crows, dogs, the buzz of flies in great, droning clouds. You've learned not to flinch when maggots fall from sleeves or noses. You carry a hooked pole to pull bodies from narrow alleys, from doorways where they collapsed. Sometimes you drag 3 at once, stacked like grain sacks. You try not to look at the faces. But you do. A boy. Couldn't be more than 6. Curled in a corner beside his sister. Their hands are still joined. One eye open, staring at nothing. You pause. Then you look away. There are no rituals anymore. No incense. No coins for Sharon. Just speed. Get them out. Get them gone. The pits are already dug. Massive, stinking wounds in the earth. You dump them in by the dozen. The sound is wet. No one speaks to you when you pass. If they see you, they spit or cross themselves. You are the omen, the reminder, the man who touches death daily. Children run from you, calling you Sombra or Angel Delfin. You had a wife, 2 sons. Your youngest got sick first, coughing blood, trembling. You kept him warm, held him close. That was your first mistake. By the time you buried him, your wife was feverish. You begged the gods, the Laras, even the emperor himself in whispered prayers. But she died in your arms. Your oldest ran away. You haven't seen him since. So you buried them. And then you returned to the street. Because someone has to. You recognize the others now. The quiet brotherhood of the condemned. The same men, walking the same paths, their carts creaking under weight. You nod at each other. No one talks. One of them, an older Greek named Lysandros, drinks before each round. He claims it keeps the sickness out. He says it like a joke, but he never laughs. Another, Rufus, sings when he works. Always the same tune, soft and hoarse. Something about the sea. You've never asked. Some of the bodies show signs of struggle. They weren't ready. Some still bleed. Some still breathe, just barely. You have to make a decision. Once, you hesitated. A girl, maybe 17, skin like wax but still warm. Her eyes fluttered. You carried her gently, gave her a blanket, stayed by her side that night. She was dead by dawn. You don't hesitate anymore. People say the plague came from the east, carried by soldiers returning from Parthia. Others say it's divine punishment for Rome's sins, for pride, for war, for excess. You don't care. You care about your boots, your gloves, the cracks in your hands where infection slips in. You care about sleep, and how it won't come unless you've washed 3 times and burned rosemary on the fire. You care about the quiet. It gets inside you. You used to be a sculptor. Your hands carved marble, chiseled gods from stone. Now they lift the limp, the rotted, the broken. Your grip hasn't changed, only the weight. And the weight keeps growing. One night, you dream of your wife. She's clean, whole, smiling. She says nothing, just touches your arm. When you wake, your skin is hot. Too hot. You know. You dress slowly. The rag goes over your face. The gloves. You light a sprig of dried lavender and tuck it into your belt. One last time. The cart is lighter today. Fewer collectors showed up. You're alone by midday. You keep working. The sun burns. At the final pit, you slip. Land hard. Something in your leg snaps. You lie there, surrounded by the dead, and laugh. For the first time in weeks you laugh. It echoes off the stone. And somewhere above you, the crows call back. Cloacas and the sewer men of Rome. Down here, the world is a secret. You descend into the belly of the city, past the stone steps slick with algae and thyme, into the veins and arteries of ancient Rome, the Cloaca Maxima. One of the oldest sewer systems in the world. A marvel of engineering. A monument to civilization. And a place so foul it could make the Tiber itself gag. You are a Foraca service, a sewer slave. Or perhaps just unlucky. A criminal who traded death for filth. A debtor who sold his freedom to escape the lash. Or maybe you just needed the coin. No one comes here by choice. Not really. The entrance is low, barely tall enough to crawl. You duck, then crawl, then shuffle into the bowels of the city. Above, Rome bustles, senators argue, children chase hoops, bakers shout over crusts. But none of them think about what lies beneath. Not until it rises. Your lamp flickers. The walls breathe, not metaphorically, but literally. Warm, wet air pulses from pipes and runoff ducts like the sewers are alive. They are. Microbial life thrives here. Bacteria with names no one will learn for 2,000 years. You feel them in your lungs, in your skin, in the back of your throat. The smell hits you before the tunnel even widens. Not just rot. Not just human waste. It's ancient. A layered perfume of centuries. Urine, decay, sulfur, sweat, blood. A miasma so thick it coats your tongue. You breathe through your mouth, and it only gets worse. You carry a hooked pole, a crude shovel, and a leather mask soaked in vinegar. It helps. Barely. The day's task is simple. Clear a blockage. A backup near the forum has sent waste bubbling into a bathhouse. Patrons are not pleased. Rome must flow. Always. You trudge forward through ankle-deep filth. Sometimes it's deeper. Sometimes you step and find no bottom. A gulp of sewer water could end your life, not instantly, but certainly. Fever, cramps, the red splotches, the shaking. If you're lucky, you just vomit for 3 days and live to crawl back in. You pass bones. Sometimes animal. Sometimes not. Rome disposes of many things in its sewer. Food. Secrets. Enemies. You don't ask questions. You prod the bones with your pole, push them into side channels, and move on. The blockage is worse than expected. A mass of reeds, cloth, hair, and gods know what else. It pulses slightly. You swear it breathes. You strike it. It squelches. You gag. Your partner is named Gaius. He once worked in a bakery. Now he smells like a burnt latrine. He has 3 teeth and hums tunelessly while he works. You don't talk much. Down here, words are rationed like water. Together, you jab, shovel, pull, push. It resists. It fights. Hours pass. The blockage loosens, finally, and with it the pressure behind it. The sewer roars. A surge of filth rushes past. You're knocked into the wall. Gaius loses his pole. Something solid, a broken amphora, a jawbone, hits your thigh. It bleeds. You don't notice. When the flood calms, you're covered. Eyes, ears, mouth. Your skin burns. Vinegar doesn't help now. You scrape yourself with your own nails, as if you could peel off the sickness. And still, the job isn't done. You push onward, deeper. There are rumors of gas pockets, invisible killers that steal your breath. 1 minute you're scooping sludge, the next you're on the floor, convulsing. You pass a chamber where 2 workers died last month. Their bodies were found days later, bloated and smiling. You reach a collection point, a place where 5 tunnels meet. Rats the size of house cats scatter at your light. One pauses to glare at you. You glare back. It wins. You scrape the walls, check the flow. Every hour, you record blockages, oddities, changes in current. Not for science. For survival. If the water slows, something's wrong. If it reverses, run. Break comes when the sun is directly overhead, though you'd never know it. You chew stale barley bread. It tastes like mildew. Gaius shares a sliver of smoked eel. You decline. He eats it anyway, grinning through the sewage. Back to work. Sometimes the city uses you. Sends you down to recover rings dropped in latrines. Or bodies dumped in haste. Once, a senator's mistress vanished. They sent 5 men. 2 returned, carrying a necklace. No one asked questions. You've seen things down here. Symbols scrawled in ash. Bones in unnatural piles. Shrines to forgotten gods made of teeth. The sewer isn't just waste. It's memory. It remembers every secret Rome flushes away. And it keeps them. Sometimes you wonder, if the empire ever falls, will it be from above? Or from below? Your shift ends when the flow quiets. When the water runs smooth and the stench feels normal. You crawl out, into the twilight. Your skin itches. Your eyes sting. Your mind, quiet. You remove your mask. The air feels thin, clean, even. A lie your body tells itself. You're paid in coin. Not much. Enough for a stale drink and a spot by the fire. You'll sit in silence, scratching your skin, wondering if the fever will come. Some nights it does. Others, just the dreams. Of rushing water. Of gas. Of things that breathe in the dark. Tomorrow, you'll go back. Because Rome doesn't care how its streets stay clean. Only that they do. And someone has to go beneath. You stand at the edge of the city, the cold wind biting through your threadbare cloak as dusk falls over the ancient walls. Your post is the gatehouse, a narrow, cramped chamber with walls that sweat the damp of centuries, and a door heavy enough to crush a man's spirit if it ever slammed shut on him for good. The city gates aren't just entrances or exits, they're the first line of defense and often the last place you'll ever see the sun. Being a guardian here is no simple job. It is a role carved out by necessity, not glory. Unlike the shining legionaries who march proudly under banners, you have been left with the shadows. You stand for hours on end, on cold stone, with your eyes scanning the horizon for threats that might never come, or that come when you least expect. Every night, the fog rolls in thick like a shroud, and the streets beyond the gate vanish into a blur of silence and suspicion. Your armor is worn and patched. The leather straps creak as you shift your weight from one foot to another. The sword at your side is dull and chipped, a relic of better days, handed down from a man who died in battle long ago. The only warmth you feel is the fire of dread kindling low in your gut. The city is no place for the weak, and these gates have seen more death than welcome. You remember the first night on watch. The sun dipped below the horizon and the gates shut behind you with a grinding finality that echoed in your bones. No cheers. No send-off. Just the chill that sank into your marrow as the shadows crept closer. The silence around you was thick, heavy with expectation and fear. Somewhere beyond, in the maze of narrow alleys and crowded tenements, life went on oblivious to the fate of those standing sentinel. But you knew better. Death was patient here. The gate is your prison and your fortress. No warmth from hearth or family comforts reach this place. You clutch a cup of bitter, cold water, the only drink for hours, and pull your cloak tighter. The wind carries faint whispers from the city, a child crying, a door slamming, footsteps of someone fleeing trouble. Your mind drifts to home, but home is just a word now. Your wife died 2 years ago, taken by fever in the cramped apartment where you once dreamed of raising your daughters. Now your 2 little girls are cared for by their grandmother in a distant village, far from the grime and danger of the city. You can only send what little coin you earn from this cursed post to keep their bellies full and their spirits alive. It is a meager comfort, but it's all you have. On nights like this, you curse the gods who have chosen this life for you. Guarding a gate that rarely sees joy, only misery. When you first took this duty, you thought it was an honor, a chance to protect your city, to serve Rome. But honor doesn't fill the stomach. It doesn't dry the sweat from your brow when the summer heat turns stone to fire, nor does it stop the chills in winter when frost bites deep into your bones. The stories you hear from passing travelers aren't comforting either. Bandits lurking beyond the roads, waiting for a weak gate to fall. Enemy scouts slipping through the darkness. Even rumors of plague spreading in the outer villages. Each tale a shadow over your heart, tightening with every passing hour. The hours drag on. Your body aches from standing still, from the endless weight of your gear, and the gnawing hunger that no ration can silence. The city's lamps flicker in the distance like dying stars, barely piercing the night. Occasionally, a courier rushes past, their eyes wide with news, but none of it ever brings good tidings. Suddenly, a noise. A soft clatter beyond the gate. Your grip tightens on your spear. The shadows twitch and the air thickens with tension. You call out, voice low but steady, "Who goes there?" No answer. Just the wind. You wait, breath shallow. The gate creaks slightly. A warning? Your heart hammers. You know this game well. The night can be your friend or your executioner. You signal your fellow guard down the rampart with a sharp whistle. Together, you scan the darkness, eyes straining for movement. Minutes feel like hours. Then, a figure emerges, stumbling forward, a man, filthy and bleeding from a wound on his arm. He collapses before the gate, gasping for breath. You barely have time to react before more shadows loom, a band of thieves, no doubt, exploiting the gate's weaknesses. You and your partner ready your weapons, adrenaline surging. The fight is brutal and quick. The thieves outnumber you, their faces twisted with desperation and hatred. The clang of metal, the grunt of exertion, the sting of pain, all blur together. By dawn, the gate stands still, but you are bruised and bloodied. The thieves lay scattered, some dead, some groaning. Your spear is bent, your cloak torn. The stench of sweat, blood, and fear clings to you like a second skin. As the city wakes, the townsfolk glance nervously at the gate, whispering of the night's battle. To them, it's just another story. To you, it is survival, and a reminder that each day could be your last. This is the curse of the Guardian. You return to your post, nursing wounds that ache deeper than the flesh. The city gates may protect the Empire's glory, but for you, they are a tombstone in waiting. No monuments will honor your name. No songs will tell of your sacrifice. Only silence. And the cold, relentless watch of the night. You wake up before dawn, the air already cool but heavy with the scent of dust and sweat. Your muscles protest, a dull ache that's become your constant companion. You wrap your worn leather tunic tighter around your chest, feeling the rough fibers chafe against your skin. Today, like every day for the past several years, you will climb the steep slopes outside Rome, to join the labor force building the aqueducts that carry lifeblood, water, into the sprawling city below. The year is 52 BCE. The city's thirst is insatiable. Rome, swelling beyond its original boundaries, now houses nearly 1 million souls, soldiers, senators, slaves, merchants, and families packed tightly into crumbling insulae, the early apartment buildings that cling like barnacles to the city's hills. Clean water is a luxury, a prize fought for in sweat and blood. The aqueducts are the veins of this empire's heart, but those who build them are often forgotten, trapped in a relentless grind that can break both body and spirit. You are one of the aquarii, the workers tasked with laying stone, carving channels, and assembling arches over ravines and valleys. Your life is tethered to precarious scaffolding hundreds of feet above jagged rocks and rushing rivers. One misstep means a plunge into darkness. Your hands are blistered and scarred, your clothes streaked with dust and lime, the powder that eats away at your lungs when inhaled over months and years. The Romans boast of their engineering marvels, some even call the aqueducts a gift from the gods. But they don't talk about the men crushed under falling stones, or those who never come down from the scaffolds alive. Tacitus, the historian, later writes in his annals about the dangers faced by such laborers, though mostly in passing. You don't expect your name to be recorded. You are invisible. Your morning begins with the clatter of tools and the shouted orders of the overseers. Their voices ring out over the din, sharp and impatient. Punishment is swift for those who slow down or falter. Slaves and free laborers alike are whipped, sometimes for the slightest mistake, dropping a block, missing a measurement, or lagging behind in the scorching heat. The sun rises mercilessly, turning the stones and metal tools into searing coals. Sweat pours from your brow, mixing with the grime on your face. The air smells of wet earth and the sharp tang of mortar. Every breath fills your lungs with dust, a silent enemy that will settle and scar your insides. Your task is to secure a series of arches that will span the valley near the river Anio, one of the main water sources for Rome's aqueduct system. The arches must be perfect. Any flaw will cause leaks or collapse, wasting months of work and risking lives downstream. You climb the wooden scaffolding, each plank creaking under your weight. Below you, the river churns angrily, a cruel reminder of what awaits the careless or unlucky. Your fingers grasp the rough stone blocks, lowering them into place with practiced precision. Around you, other men shout encouragement, curses, or prayers, depending on their temperament. Suddenly, a stone slips. The cry is immediate and sharp. The block falls, striking a fellow worker's leg before crashing into the rocks below. His screams pierce the air. You glance down and see blood pooling, the grim reaper's shadow flickering across the surface of the water. But there's no time for mercy. The overseer barks orders, pushing the crew to keep moving. The injured man's fate is uncertain. You feel a cold knot of fear tighten in your stomach. Any one of you could be next. The aqueduct project began under Appius Claudius Caecus in 312 BCE, a figure famous for his vision and ruthlessness. It was he who first linked Rome to distant springs with the Aqua Appia, an underground channel that set the blueprint for centuries of construction. Since then, 11 more aqueducts have been added, snaking over 400 kilometers to feed the city. But the grandeur of these feats hides the grim reality. The workforce is expendable, their suffering invisible beneath marble arches and flowing fountains. Many of you are slaves, captured in wars or born into bondage. Others are freedmen struggling to survive in a city that offers few chances for the poor. Whatever your status, your labor is brutal, exhausting, and perilous. Roman law offers little protection. Injuries on the job are common, and compensation is rare. The only certainty is death or permanent disability if luck doesn't favor you. As the day drags on, your hands tremble but you force them to steady. Your mind drifts to your family. You have 2 daughters left at home, cared for by your aging mother since your wife died in childbirth. They don't understand why you spend hours dangling above a river, risking your life for stones and mortar. You tell yourself that the water you help bring will nourish them, that the city's growth means opportunities for them. But some nights, exhaustion and fear overwhelm hope. The work is unrelenting. When not balancing on narrow planks, you labor in the quarry, extracting limestone and volcanic rock essential for construction. The quarries are pits of death, rocks tumble without warning, dust chokes the air, and the risk of collapse is ever present. The engineers who design the aqueducts are proud of their mathematical precision and architectural beauty. Vitruvius, the famed architect, writes in his treatise De Architectura about the delicate balance of form and function. Yet, from your vantage point, the elegance is a cruel irony. The aqueducts stand tall and proud, but the foundation is built on the bones of the forgotten. By evening, your back aches fiercely. You stagger down the slopes, the fading light casting long shadows over the construction site. The overseer is already barking orders for the next day. You find brief solace in the cold water of a nearby stream, washing the grime from your skin. The water is icy, stinging against your bruised muscles, but it is a small mercy. Returning to your modest dwelling in Rome's Subura district, a crowded, noisy neighborhood known for its poverty and vice, you feel the familiar mixture of relief and dread. Your daughters run to greet you, their faces bright despite the hardships. Their laughter is the fragile thread that pulls you through each day. But tomorrow will be just as harsh. The arches must rise, the channels must flow, and the city must drink. The empire demands it, indifferent to the men who build its foundations. You are part of this great machine, a cog turned by fear, pain, and relentless duty. The aqueducts carry life, but for you, they are a reminder of mortality. Every day spent among stone and dust is a step closer to an early grave. Yet, you persist because for your daughters, and for the hope of something better, you must. And so, with aching limbs and a heart heavy with sacrifice, you prepare to face another dawn, another climb, another stone to place in the unforgiving walls of Rome's water empire. You wake up in a cramped wooden cabin, the air thick with the smell of sweat, salt, and fear. Around you, the creaking of a ship groaning under the weight of its cargo. Not gold, not spices but people. Slaves. This is the world of the Roman slave trader, a profession as filthy and perilous as it is lucrative. Today, you are one of those merchants, part businessman, part smuggler, and full-time opportunist, navigating a complex web of risk, deception, and human misery that fuels the empire's insatiable appetite. Rome's slave market was one of the largest and most brutal institutions of the ancient world. By the 1st century BCE, Rome imported tens of thousands of slaves annually from across its expanding borders: Gaul, Hispania, Africa, the Near East, every corner of the empire feeding its insidious demand. You are both facilitator and profiteer, acquiring slaves from battlefields, pirates, kidnappers, and collapsing economies. Your goods range from strong farmhands to trained gladiators, skilled artisans to broken spirits, all crammed into cramped ships or overcrowded caravans for journeys that kill more than any sword. The business begins long before the sale. Your travels expose you to threats on every side: rival merchants eager to undercut your prices, bandits ready to ambush your caravan, and hostile locals unwilling to sell their own kin. Navigating these dangers requires a blend of charm, bribery, and sometimes violence. You keep a sharp eye on your cargo. Every slave is a potential profit but also a liability. Death, illness, or rebellion can wipe out your investment overnight. The conditions for your human cargo are nightmarish. Shackled and packed tightly, they endure stifling heat, foul odors, and a constant threat of disease. You've seen men and women lose their minds from despair, children scream until their voices are gone, and elders wither away under the weight of their chains. You might not feel sympathy. After all, this is commerce, but the stench of human misery clings to your skin and seeps into your dreams. In the ports of Ostia or Puteoli, your slaves are paraded before buyers like livestock, inspected for strength and health. You boast of well-fed bodies and obedient temperaments, using phrases that thinly veil the truth. Many are broken, sickly, or terrified beyond repair. Negotiations are brutal affairs. You haggle not just on price but on who will bear the cost of hidden diseases or injuries sustained during the journey. The profit margin is razor-thin. A single shipment could make or break your fortune. But the perils don't end at the market. The act of transport itself is a gauntlet. Sea voyages are fraught with storms, piracy, and disease. On land, roads are treacherous and supply lines unreliable. You must constantly balance speed against security, knowing that a single mistake could mean losing your entire human cargo to escape, theft, or death. You carry a deep knowledge of Rome's economy and social fabric. Who wants what kind of slave, what skills fetch a premium, and which regions yield the strongest or cheapest labor. The demand is relentless. Farms, mines, households, and public works all depend on slaves. Each new conquest brings a fresh supply but also shifts the market, forcing you to adapt or perish. Occasionally, the trade crosses into morally ambiguous territory even for your jaded sensibilities. There are rumors of kidnapping free citizens to meet quotas, of shipping people under false pretenses, or selling slaves to brutal owners who promise little mercy. You choose to look away or justify it as necessary collateral in a harsh world. Personal safety is never guaranteed. Rival traders might sabotage your shipments. Disgruntled slaves could revolt, leading to bloody uprisings. You've heard stories of caravans ambushed in the night, captains thrown overboard, and entire crews lost to mutiny. Every trip is a gamble with your life. Behind the scenes, your own existence is lonely and precarious. You sleep little, worry always, and navigate a network of contacts, brokers, boat captains, local officials, all whose loyalty is as fleeting as the wind. Your fortune depends not just on skill but on luck and ruthless calculation. Yet, despite the misery you oversee, the rewards can be enormous. Some merchants amass vast wealth, erect villas, and marry into the Roman elite. You imagine a future where your name is whispered with respect in the forum. But such dreams are fragile. always shadowed by the constant specter of ruin. Tonight, you sit alone counting coins, your hands stained with ink and sweat. The distant cries of newly captured slaves echo faintly in your mind, a haunting reminder of the cost behind your empire's splendor. You wonder if history will remember you, and if so, how. This is the life of a Roman slave trader. Dangerous, dirty, and deeply intertwined with the dark heart of an empire built on the backs of the oppressed. The line between profit and peril is razor thin, and the toll is measured in human lives lost long before freedom could ever be imagined. Block 7, Carriers of the Via Appia. You weren't born into this job. No one is. It's not a trade, not a craft passed down with pride from father to son. It's what's left when every other door has been shut in your face. When you're not worth enough to be sold as a gladiator or skilled enough to die in the mines. That's when you're handed a rope, a whip, and a cart with one broken wheel. Congratulations! You're now a carter on the Via Appia, Rome's most famous road, and perhaps its most miserable. At first glance, it sounds grand. The Via Appia, Regina Viarum, the Queen of Roads. A shining artery stretching south from the Eternal City, lined with tombs of noblemen, merchants, forgotten generals. Stones laid by legions, sweat etched into history. But to you, it's just another length of stone that grinds your joints to dust and eats your soul 1 mile at a time. You wake before dawn. You always do. The stables stink of mildew and horse piss, and the hay is more mice than straw. Your breath hangs in the air like fog, and you've already started coughing again. It's the dust. The limestone kicks up with every step, invades your lungs like an occupying army. Some days you spit blood. Others, just black phlegm. Your cargo today is simple: amphory of oil, 10 sacks of grain, and a passenger. A merchant from Capua, pale hands, silk robe, and the kind of expression that makes you want to throw him under the wheels. He smells like perfume and privilege. He tells you not to jostle the cart. You don't answer. You never do. You know better. The road jostles everything. The road jostles you. By the first mile, the left wheel is already whining. The iron rim is loose again. You wrap it with a leather strap soaked in pig fat, tighten it, and keep moving. You always keep moving. Stopping means explaining delays to the quartermaster. The quartermaster doesn't care if you lost a wheel or a leg. You're replaceable. The cargo isn't. Your oxen are tired. So are you. So is the world. You pass milestones with fading numbers, see tombs with cracked facades. Some days, it feels like you're not moving forward, just grinding in place, one rut at a time. The Appian stones are uneven, ancient, and worn. In the rainy season, water pools in their crevices. In the summer, they bake like griddles. Either way, your feet hurt. They always hurt. Other carters pass you sometimes, if their carts are lighter or if they bribe the road wardens. You nod, they nod. No one speaks. There's a kind of silent fraternity among the damned. You all smell the same: sweat, manure, and stale fear. You all limp the same. The Via Appia doesn't spare anyone, no matter how many gods they pray to. Bandits? Yes, sometimes. Not often. The patrols make sure the main roads are mostly safe. But occasionally, a caravan disappears. Someone finds a cart burned in a ditch. They say it was wolves. Others say it was deserters. Either way, no one asks questions. You just keep your knife close, hidden under the driver's bench. Not that it would matter. If someone wants to kill you for your ox, they will. And honestly, on some days, you wouldn't fight that hard. You reach a way station by mid-morning. It's a stone post with bored guards and stricter clerks. They inspect your manifest, your cargo, your wheels. The merchant complains. You keep your mouth shut. One wrong word and you're fined. Two wrong words and you're whipped. Paperwork is sacred. Your spine is not. You move on. The sun climbs. Your tunic sticks to your back. The merchant is snoring now. You think about tipping him into a ditch and blaming the road. You don't. Not today. You eat standing. Dry bread and dried figs. The bread has ants in it. You eat it anyway. The figs are sour. You eat them anyway. Food is fuel. Flavor is a luxury you can't afford. Water. You sip what you brought. There's a well at the next town. Maybe. Unless it's dry again. Or poisoned by runoff. You once saw a man vomit blood after drinking from the well at Beauville. He died a week later. No one stopped his cart. His oxen wandered off into the fields. The amphory shattered when the cart tipped. You still remember the sound, like bones breaking underwater. Afternoon. The heat turns the stones into mirrors. Your sandals are worn. Your toes bleed. Your cart creaks like an old man begging for mercy. You pass tomb after tomb. Some are impressive. Columns, inscriptions, carved reliefs of men with stern eyes and square jaws. You imagine they once rode in litters, not carts. Dined on olives and honeyed wine, not stale barley and dried fish. Now they lie still, their names half erased by rain and time. Someday, you'll be like them. Or maybe not. You probably won't even get a grave. Just a shallow ditch, if you're lucky. The wind shifts. It brings the scent of smoke and rot. A dead mule lies by the road, swollen, half-picked by birds. No one moves it. It's part of the scenery now. Like the cracked stones, like the dust, like you. By the time you reach the outskirts of Terracina, it's almost dark. The merchant wakes, stretches, and grumbles about his back. He tosses you a coin. It's not even a full denarius. You pocket it without a word. It's more than most give. You unload the cargo yourself. No one helps. No one ever helps. Then you turn around. There's no rest. No warm meal. No bath. You sleep beneath the cart or in the straw, if there's any left. Tomorrow, you go back. Empty cart. Same road. Same stones. Same endless thrum in your bones that whispers, this is your life. This is your grave. You're just being buried in slow motion, 1 mile at a time. You weren't born into war, but war found you anyway. Your name doesn't matter. Not out here. What matters is that you have 2 arms, 1 eye, and a back that hasn't snapped in half yet. Congratulations, you're eligible to be an archer in the Roman army. They told you it would be glory. That you'd stand on hills like a hawk, loosing deadly shafts into charging barbarians with precision and power. What they didn't tell you was that those hills are mud, that your feet would rot before your arrows ever found a target, and that most of your time would be spent not firing at enemies, but digging ditches, stringing rotten sinew, and carrying bundles of wood heavier than your hope. The year is 125 AD. You are stationed near the Danube, in a cold, wet camp that smells like boiled cabbage, wet leather, and disappointment. Your centurion barks before the sun even has the decency to rise. Up. Archers, up. You rise, not because you want to, but because you know what happens if you don't. A soldier who doesn't rise becomes an example. A soldier who becomes an example doesn't rise again. Your bow is composite. Horn, wood, and glue that smells of horse and regret. You made it yourself, more or less, under the eye of an older archer missing 3 fingers. He taught you how to string it by feel because your hands would be too numb most mornings to do it by sight. The arrows are fletched poorly. Some curve in flight like drunken thoughts. You've learned to aim with uncertainty. You pray the wind favors the indecisive. Training is relentless. Targets made of straw and cloth soaked in rainwater. Every day you lose 200 arrows, whether you want to or not. Your shoulders scream. Your back howls. Your fingers bleed. The bowstring leaves grooves in your skin like punishment. You grow calluses where once there was sensitivity. You haven't written home in months because you can't hold a stylus without shaking. And then there's the march. Archers walk like everyone else, burdened like mules. You carry your bow, your quiver, a pack full of wet bread, dry cheese, and a waterskin that tastes like leather stew. Rain is constant. So is mud. Your sandals gave up weeks ago. You wrap your feet in linen and pray you don't slip into some bog and disappear. But worst of all is battle. Not because of the chaos, you expected that. But because archers are hated. Hated by your own infantry, who think you fight from the rear because you're cowardly. Hated by the enemy, who target you first because they know what damage a volley can do. Hated by the wind, the terrain, the gods. You stand behind a wall of shields, peering over as horns blare and men scream. The centurion gives the order. Loose. You pull. You aim. You release. A volley of arrows arcs into the sky like black rain. You can't see where they land. Sometimes you hear screams. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes your arrows land in dirt, in shields, in the back of some idiot charging without a helmet. The chaos is complete. You reload. Again. 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 Your fingers blister anew. Blood smears the fletching. You keep going. And then they charge. Your job is to keep firing. But you can't, because now it's swords and blood, and you're not trained for that. You stab with an arrowhead, desperate, panicked. Someone falls near you. You want to help. You can't. You run. You're told not to, but you run anyway. Later you'll be punished. Or not. Depends if the centurion saw. Depends if the centurion lived. Back at camp, you sit near the fire, silent. Everyone's silent. The stew burns. No one cares. Someone lost an ear. Someone else won't wake up. You stare at your hands. You soak them in water. The blood doesn't come off. Just sinks deeper. The next morning, you train again. You aren't given a medal. You aren't given a rest. You're given more arrows and a few curses. And here's the irony. You're a specialist. The elite, they said. A man trained to kill from a distance. But they forget to mention how short that distance becomes in real battle. You watch friends lose eyes, fingers, sanity. You learn to recognize when someone's breaking. It starts with silence. Then they miss easy shots. Then they stop aiming altogether. You cover for them. You hope someone will cover for you when it's your turn. Sometimes, when things are quiet, you dream of a different life. Of a life without bows, without marching, without screaming. You imagine warm bread, dry clothes, and a roof that doesn't leak. But then the horns blare again. And you rise. And you pull. And you aim. And you let go. Because you are an archer of Rome. And your job is not to survive. It's to kill before you die. Hey there. Before we begin tonight's descent into the murky halls of imperial power, I ask only one thing. Subscribe if you find yourself returning here again and again, searching for strange corners of history to fall asleep to. Now dim the lights, settle in, and prepare to meet a man who lives with death curled under his tongue. You wake up choking. Not on a dream, not on a nightmare, but on a bitter taste. Your mouth is filled with copper and smoke, and your stomach feels like it's decided to climb out of your throat. It's not the first time. In fact, it's a good sign. It means you're still alive. You are a catador, a food taster for the imperial court of Rome, and your job, if it can be called a job and not a sentence, is to die very, very slowly. But preferably not today. The emperors don't trust anyone. And why should they? Power, in Rome, is poison. And it travels fast, in whispers and wine goblets. You were once a slave. Now, technically, you're something better, a trusted member of the palace staff. Trusted, in this case, means expendable. You sit at a table before each meal and try the emperor's food before he does. Every dish, every drink, sometimes even the water. Especially the water. At first, it was only once or twice a day. A small bite. A sip. Enough to check. But the empire is not what it used to be. Paranoia spreads faster than borders. Now, every course gets tasted. Even the sauces. Even the oil on the bread. Some days, it feels like you eat more of the emperor's meals than he does. The cooks watch you with dread. They know that if you fall over foaming, they'll be nailed to a wall before sunset. The guards watch you with boredom. They've seen worse. The emperor watches you with interest, morbid, curious, detached. He smiles when you gag. Laughs when your eye twitches. He thinks it's funny. It isn't. Not when your throat closes up because the honey glaze on the roast had a pinch of something unholy. Not when your vision blurs because the wine had an extra ingredient, added not in malice but by accident. Even innocent mistakes can kill you. But it's not always accident. Sometimes, it's intentional. Sometimes, someone wants the emperor gone. And sometimes, that means you go first. There was the time with the mushrooms. They looked fresh. Smelled earthy. A delicacy from the provinces. You took a bite and instantly knew something was wrong. A bloom of warmth in your mouth, a slow tingle in your limbs. You said nothing, of course. You never say anything. You only excuse yourself quietly and go lie down to wait. 3 days in darkness. Fever, hallucinations, sweat that smelled like vinegar. You woke up in your own vomit, blind in one eye for a week. The emperor was furious. That mushroom dish was his favorite. You don't complain. You don't get days off. You get fed tinctures from half-mad physicians who think letting your blood will make the poison come out. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. Your body is a battlefield now. Scars on your throat. Tremors in your hands. Your liver feels like it's constantly arguing with your stomach. Your tongue, once quick and clever, now feels like a dry leaf most days. You've grown thin. Not elegant thin. Grave thin. And yet, you're still here. Still alive. Some say the tasters develop an immunity over time. That small doses of poison can harden your body, turn it into a fortress. That's partly true. But no one mentions the price. The shaking hands. The constant nausea. The insomnia. The dreams of drowning in wine. You sleep in a small room beside the kitchens. No windows. Just a mat, a bucket, and a little idol of mercury your mother gave you before she sold you into servitude. She told you it was for luck. Every morning, you kiss it. Then you open your door and walk to the dining hall, wondering if this will be your last day. You're not alone. There are others like you, across the empire. Some taste for senators. Others for generals. But no position is as dangerous, or as prestigious, as yours. The emperor is a lightning rod for betrayal. That makes you a lightning rod for the lightning. And the worst part? You don't even hate him. You've seen him soft, late at night, talking to his daughter about philosophy. You've watched him cry at the funeral of a dog. You know that under the golden iron, he's just a man, afraid, like you. But fear doesn't make you friends. It just means you both flinch when the wine is poured. So you eat. You drink. You wait. One day, maybe the cup will tremble a little too late. Maybe the sweetness in the dates will coat the edge of something sharp. Maybe you'll swallow, smile, and die before dessert. Or maybe you'll live to see another sunrise. In ancient Rome, that's victory enough. Marble carvers and statue sculptors. The workshop smells like dust. Not just any dust. The particular, clinging kind that feels ancient, like it remembers every hammer stroke from every century before you. The air is thick with marble powder, suspended in sunlight like pale ghosts. You've been breathing it since you were 10. Now you're 28 and your cough sounds like it wants to leave your chest and start a new life. This isn't a glamorous trade, despite what the senators and poets might say when they stand admiring their own stone likenesses in the forum. The statue stands tall. You stoop. The senator will be remembered. You won't. You're the invisible hand that carved his chin, chiseled his nose, gave his smug mouth its precise smirk. He gets eternal legacy. You get chipped fingernails and permanent tinnitus. You start the day sharpening tools. Mallets, chisels, rasps. Iron against whetstone. It's a rhythm you know like prayer. You hum to it. Not because you enjoy it. It's just something to drown out the headaches. They come and go like visiting gods, usually uninvited and angry. There are 6 of you in the workshop. All men. All coughing. One is missing 3 fingers. Another has a permanent squint from stone chips embedded in his eye. He says he sees double, which helps with symmetry. You laughed once. Then you stopped laughing. Because it's true. The master sculptor never carves anymore. He sits, supervises, drinks watered wine, occasionally stands to berate. He's missing a toe. Claims he lost it to a collapsing column. Everyone knows it was gout. No one says anything. He's the one who gets the commissions. You're the ones who turn the block into bodies. Marble comes from Carrara or Luna. Great hulking blocks transported overland by oxen, floated down rivers, rolled through the mud. By the time it gets to you, it's already seen more of Italy than you ever will. You touch it like you would a body. Tap it, listen for the tone. Good marble sings. Bad marble sulks. Carving starts rough. A point chisel and a heavy hand. You attack the stone like it insulted your mother. Big slashing blows, throwing up white shards like bone confetti. The outline emerges slowly, a limb, a torso, a draped fold of cloth. Then comes the claw chisel, the riffler, the rasp. Hours and hours of scraping, smoothing, sweating. Dust in your beard, in your ears, behind your eyes. You wash your face and find marble slivers in your eyebrows. You're carving a statue of the goddess Minerva today, commissioned by some general who thinks she granted him victory at the Rhine. You wonder what the real goddess would think of the general. Or of you. Bent over her cold ankles, shaving stone from her foot like a podiatrist with a hangover. The pay is irregular. Some weeks you get a handful of bronze coins. Other weeks, nothing. The master says the client hasn't paid. Or the temple is delayed. Or the gods are punishing everyone for someone's adultery. You nod and eat barley gruel again. Once, a statue fell, cracked in half, right through the chest. It wasn't your fault. But you were nearby. That was enough. They took it out of your pay. Took it out of your pride too. Your hands are strong but ruined. Calloused, scarred, numb in places. You've lost count of how many times you've bled on a goddess's knee or a senator's cheek. Once, You chipped a nostril too deep and had to reshape the whole face. You made it slightly uglier out of spite. No one noticed. No one ever notices. The workshop has no windows. Just a wide open front and a few torches in the back when the light fades. It gets cold in winter. In summer, it bakes like a kiln. You sweat until your tunic clings, until your sandals slide on marble dust. Your throat always feels raw. You dream of white sometimes. Not snow. Not clouds. Just endless, choking marble dust. In the dream you can't breathe. You wake up coughing. Apprentices come and go. Most don't last. They think it's about art. About beauty. It's about lungs and joints and the constant ache in your spine. It's about breaking your body to make someone else's immortal. Once, a piece of yours made it to the forum. You visited it at night. Touched the hem of the stone toga. You smiled. No one saw. You never told anyone. Tomorrow, another statue. Another god. Another mouth to carve. Another eye to shape. You try to put sadness in the eyes. Or maybe anger. Or exhaustion. Something of yourself. But they always look serene. Serene and dead. Maybe that's the trick. You give them your pain. They give it back as beauty. The gods are silent. The stones are not. They whisper as you work. They whisper in coughs and cracks and little clouds of powder that rise like prayers you never meant to say. And still, you carve. The sun has already climbed high above the jagged horizon, but you haven't moved from the cold, hard ground where you spent a restless, short night. Your body aches in every joint, the rough stones beneath you digging into your ribs like silent accusations. You don't remember the last time you felt comfort, or even warmth that wasn't laced with sweat and grime. The distant clang of chisels and hammers has been your morning alarm for years now, and it will be your evening lullaby for many more to come. You are a slave, one of thousands, chained not only by iron but by the unyielding demands of empire. Your days bleed into one another with no promise of respite or reward, only the endless toil of quarrying stone, hauling heavy blocks, and assembling the very structures that will immortalize Rome's grandeur. Every slab you drag, every brick you lay, builds a monument not for you, but for those who command you, who treat your existence as little more than a tool in their insatiable quest for glory. The work begins before the first rooster crows. You are roused not by kindness, but by the sharp snap of a whip or the brutal shove of a guard's boot. The cold morning air bites at your skin as you trudge from the overcrowded slave quarters, cramped rooms where the sick and the broken lie side by side, forgotten by all but death. Your fingers, calloused and cracked, grasp the rough ropes tied around massive blocks of travertine. This stone will become a temple, a palace, a bathhouse, a testament to Rome's power. Yet to you, it is the weight of your suffering made tangible. Your lungs burn with the dust stirred from the quarries, fine particles that settle deep and choke without mercy. Coughs echo across the limestone cliffs, ragged and wet, as many slaves fall ill, their bodies betraying them long before their spirits give out. There are no healers here, only the indifferent sun and the cold stones. You swallow grit instead of water, each breath a gamble. At midday, the sun becomes an unforgiving tyrant, scorching skin and wilting flesh. There is no shade, only the relentless glare bouncing off the white marble and metal tools. You dip your hands in the stagnant pool nearby, hoping for even a moment's relief, but the water is thick with mud and decay. It offers no comfort, only the reminder of the filth that surrounds you, a filth both physical and spiritual. Around you, the cries of other slaves punctuate the labor, the grunts of exertion, the curses spat in desperation, the sobs stifled beneath cracked lips. You know many faces, brothers and sisters in misery, whose bodies are etched with scars, not just from work, but from the cruel punishments inflicted by overseers eager to enforce discipline through terror. The overseer's lash cracks like thunder, a sound that pierces through the cacophony of labor. You flinch, but keep moving, muscles screaming in protest. Behind each movement is the ever-present dread that a single misstep might bring a harsher blow or worse, a march to the executioner's block for insubordination. You are just a cog in the vast machinery of the empire, expendable and forgotten. Some days, you wonder if your name has even been remembered by anyone outside these stone walls. The chains you wear may be physical, but the true imprisonment is in the knowledge that your life is not your own. It is a commodity, measured in the sweat you bleed and the stones you shape. Yet even here, amid despair, there is a strange, brutal rhythm. Your hands memorize the contours of each block, your arms move with the relentless precision born of necessity. You learn to mask pain, to endure hunger and thirst with a silence that weighs heavier than any iron shackle. Your spirit, though battered, clings stubbornly to the faintest flicker of hope, that perhaps one day, this endless labor will end. But hope is a dangerous thing. The dreams you dare to dream are quickly snatched away by the harsh dawn of reality. The slave quarters hold no comfort, only disease and desolation thrive there. Families are broken, children sold off or left to the mercy of strangers. You hear whispers of revolts crushed in blood, of those who dared to resist and paid with their lives. You keep your head low, because to survive is to obey. As the day drags on, your feet blister on the rough stone, your back aches from the weight you carry. The temple's walls rise higher with every strike of the chisel, but with each inch gained, your own strength wanes. The monument grows, but so does the shadow of death looming over you and your fellow slaves. At sunset, when others might find solace in rest, you are marched back to the slave pens. The smell of sweat and filth clings to your skin. The guards count the bodies, but never count the souls broken in the process. The cold night air offers no comfort, only the cold certainty that tomorrow, you will rise again, to a life forged in stone and suffering. You close your eyes, and the last thing you see is not the marble columns or the grandeur of Rome, but the cold, indifferent face of the empire that owns you. The chains may be heavy, but the weight of invisibility is heavier still. And so, in the shadows of Rome's glory, the builders of its legacy fade into silence, their stories buried beneath the stones they shaped. Their sacrifices forgotten by history, yet inscribed forever in the unyielding walls that whisper the true cost of empire. As the Roman poet Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." Perhaps, for these souls, the time was not wasted, but stolen, piece by piece, beneath the blazing sun and the empire's unrelenting gaze.